There's a pattern in history that has destroyed every global superpower for the last 500 years. And right now, in 2025, the United States is following that same path, step by step, decision by decision, as if reading from the same script that ended every empire before. In 1590, Spain was the richest empire on earth. It controlled half the world's gold and silver, dominated Europe militarily, and its currency was accepted everywhere. Within 80 years, it was bankrupt, reduced to a second-rate power that never recovered. In 1914, Britain ruled the largest empire in human history. The sun never set on British territory, and the pound sterling was the global reserve currency. Yet within 40 years, the empire was gone. The pound collapsed. Britain became America's junior partner. In 1991, the Soviet Union stood as the other global superpower, nuclear arsenal, global reach, unmatched influence. Then, in just 900 days, it vanished. Not from war, but from economic implosion. 3 empires, 3 collapses. Each followed the same 7-stage sequence. And here's the chilling truth. The United States has already completed 5 of those 7 stages. We're not approaching the pattern. We're inside it. This is the story of how empires die, why they always believe this time is different, and why the math says it's not. And it's happening faster than anyone dares to admit. Before we break down the stages, you need to understand what collapse actually looks like, not in theory, but in practice. It doesn't begin with invasion or military defeat. It starts with economic exhaustion, when an empire grows beyond what it can sustain. Military bases in 150 countries, wars on multiple fronts, promises it can't keep, debts it can't repay. At first, it seems stable. The currency still works, the military still wins. But beneath the surface, the cracks spread. Resources are wasted. Productivity falls. The brightest citizens leave. Then comes the acceleration. Allies hedge, enemies test limits, trade partners find alternatives. The reserve currency weakens. And suddenly, the very strengths that built the empire become the reasons it falls. Your currency, once demanded worldwide, floods back home. Your military, stretched thin, becomes unsustainable. Your promises, once backed by power, turn hollow. That's not theory. It's exactly what happened to Spain, Britain, and the Soviet Union. They made the same fatal moves: military overreach, currency debasement, denial of reality, until the collapse was irreversible. Let's look at how it unfolded. The first empire to follow the pattern: Spain, 1500s to 1600s. This was the original blueprint. After Columbus reached the Americas, Spain became the first true global superpower. They conquered the Aztec and Inca empires, seized the richest gold and silver mines on Earth, and by 1600 were shipping home over 400 tons of silver every year. Spain controlled the money supply of Europe. The Spanish real was the world's reserve currency. Everyone wanted Spanish silver, and that's where the pattern begins. A nation that controls the world's money and believes that makes it untouchable. King Philip II, ruling from 1556 to 1598, was the wealthiest monarch in history, and he spent it all on empire. Stage 1. Military overextension. Spain fought everyone: the Ottomans, France, the Netherlands, England. Wars in the Mediterranean, the Americas, Asia. By 1580, Spain was fighting on 4 continents. Half the empire's income went to war, and still, it wasn't enough. Stage 2. Currency debasement. Unable to pay its bills, Spain did what every failing empire does: debased its currency. Copper was mixed into silver coins until real silver nearly vanished. The coins looked the same, but merchants stopped trusting them. Inflation exploded. Stage 3. Debt spiral. Spain borrowed endlessly from Italian and German bankers, defaulting 4 times in 40 years. 1557, 1560, 1575, 1596. Each time they promised reform. Each time, they returned to reckless spending. Stage 4. Loss of productive capacity. Spain's wealth became its poison. With limitless silver, it stopped producing anything of value. Why farm, build, or innovate when you can buy? The nobility saw work as beneath them. They imported everything: food, ships, goods, while their gold and silver flowed straight back out to pay for it. When the mines began to run dry, the empire's economy collapsed. Stage 5, social decay. As the money vanished, so did stability. Crime exploded. Beggars filled Madrid streets. The brightest citizens fled to France, England, and the Netherlands, nations still building and innovating. Spain was left with soldiers, priests, and bureaucrats, and no future. Spain's collapse left a clear mark. An empire can be huge on maps and hollow in reality. By 1640, Spain had lost Portugal. By 1650, it lost the Netherlands, its richest possession. By 1700, the Spanish Empire was a shell, vast on paper, dead in practice. It had gone from global superpower to regional backwater in less than a century. Today, Spain is a pleasant European country. But history remembers the lesson. Size on a map isn't safety. Fast forward 3 centuries to Britain, the empire where the sun literally never set. At its peak, Britain controlled 25% of the world's land and ruled over 400 million people. The pound sterling was king. London was the planet's financial heart. Every major contract and central bank referenced British credit. And yet Britain followed the same script. Stage 1, military overextension. By 1900, Britain had commitments everywhere. India, Africa, the Middle East, China, the Pacific. Defending territory on 6 continents cost an unimaginable sum. Then came World War I. Britain faced a brutal choice: stay out and lose influence, or fight and pay the price. They chose to fight. The bill was enormous, the equivalent of trillions today, and they borrowed heavily, mostly from the United States. Victory didn't fix the problem. It deepened it. Stage 2, currency stress. War drained Britain's gold reserves. In 1925, they tried to pretend everything was normal and restore the pound to the old gold parity. The result? Exports stalled, factories closed, unemployment rose. By 1931, the fantasy collapsed. The pound was devalued, and the world learned that the reserve currency could fail. Stage 3, debt spiral. World War II only added to the burden. New borrowing, new obligations. By 1945, Britain owed more than its economy could sustain. The empire was intact on maps, but bankrupt in reality. Stage 4, loss of empire. The crown jewel, India, was gone by 1947. Over the next 2 decades, Britain's overseas possessions dissolved. By 1970, the empire existed mostly in museums and textbooks. Stage 5, currency decline. The pound's global dominance faded into a regional currency. Britain kept its seats, its nukes, its prestige, but the economic foundation that made it great was gone. Now the most recent example, the Soviet Union, the fastest collapse of all. After 1945, the USSR was a superpower in every sense. Nuclear weapons, satellites, armies, and satellites circling the globe. For decades, it matched the West in arms and influence. But underneath, the economy was rotting. Stage 1, military overreach. The Soviets spent 15 to 20% of GDP on defense, far more than competing Western states. They propped up allies and proxies from Cuba to Angola, trying to match U.S. reach on a fraction of the economic base. It was unsustainable. Stage 2, economic stagnation. By the 1970s, growth stalled. Factories produced poor-quality goods. Farms failed. Technology lagged. By the 1980s, the USSR was even importing grain, a country with vast farmland that couldn't feed itself. Central planning had killed incentives and innovation. Stage 3, currency collapse. The ruble was not a convertible global currency. Internally, it was distrusted. Dollars and gold did the heavy lifting for international trade. When oil prices dropped and reserves dwindled, real money ran out. Stage 4, loss of empire. In 1989, the Berlin Wall fell. Within months, Eastern Europe shed Soviet control. The satellite states, Poland, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, East Germany, Romania, slipped away. Strategic depth vanished almost overnight. Stage 5, total collapse. By December 26, 1991, the Soviet Union ceased to exist. No external army toppled it. Internal economic implosion did. In roughly 900 days, a superpower evaporated. Unpaid soldiers, a helpless government, a worthless currency. And now the warning everyone should hear. The United States is running the same sequence. Stage by stage. Decision by decision. Stage 1 is already clear: military overextension. The U.S. maintains hundreds of bases across the globe and commitments in scores of countries. Troops, alliances, interventions, the obligations add up. The cost is real. The strain is measurable. Stage 1. Military overextension. America's footprint spans the globe, 750 bases in 80 countries, troops in 150. We're defending Europe through NATO, guaranteeing Japan and South Korea, patrolling the Middle East, deterring China, and countering Russia, all at once. Our military budget? $850 billion a year, more than the next 10 nations combined. And still, it's not enough. Equipment is aging, recruitment is down, readiness is slipping. If China invades Taiwan, if Russia tests NATO, if Iran closes the Persian Gulf, we can't handle all three simultaneously. That's overextension, the same mistake Spain, Britain, and the USSR made. Check. Stage 2. Currency debasement. In 1971, Nixon closed the gold window, and for the first time in modern history, the dollar became pure paper, backed by nothing but faith. Since 2000, the U.S. money supply has grown 400%. Since 2020 alone, we've printed over $6 trillion. The dollar has lost 98% of its value since 1971. We're not diluting silver coins like Spain did. We're just printing unlimited digital dollars. The method is modern. The outcome identical. Debasement, check. Stage 3, the debt spiral. America now owes $36 trillion. That's 120% of GDP. Interest payments are closing in on $1 trillion per year. We spend more servicing debt than defending the nation. In 2024, during peacetime and with a growing economy, we'll still run a $1.8 trillion deficit. We're borrowing money to pay interest on previous borrowing. That's not fiscal policy. That's financial quicksand. Spain defaulted 4 times. Britain borrowed itself into decline. The USSR ran out of real money. We're on the same track. Debt spiral, check. Stage 4, loss of productive capacity. Once, America made everything. Now, we design, we finance, we consume, but we don't produce. Factories move to China, Mexico, Vietnam. We import $800 billion more than we export each year. We rely on foreign supply chains for everything. Electronics, medicine, steel, even military components. Spain once traded gold and silver for the goods it could no longer produce. We trade dollars, digital promises, for the same reason. When the flow stops, the empire stalls. Loss of production, check. Stage 5, social decay. Trust is collapsing. Crime is rising. Homelessness is exploding. Over 100,000 overdose deaths every year. Our brightest minds are burned out, disillusioned, or leaving. Fertility is at record lows. Politics is pure chaos. All division, no solutions. We can't agree, can't build, can't repair. Spain saw moral exhaustion. Britain saw apathy. The USSR saw despair. America? We see all three. Stage 5, check. Now we reach stage 6. Loss of reserve currency status. This is when the world stops needing your money. It's when trade shifts to new systems, new currencies, and your own dollars come flooding home. The signs are here. BRICS nations are building alternatives. Central banks are hoarding gold. China and Russia trade in yuan and rubles. And Saudi Arabia, the heart of the petrodollar system, now accepts yuan for oil. The cracks in the dollar's dominance are widening. Stage 6, forming. And finally, Stage 7, collapse. Not a slow fade, a sudden implosion. The Soviet Union went from global superpower to non-existence in 900 days. Britain lost its empire in 2 decades. Spain took a century, but the result was the same. When an empire's currency fails, its debt becomes unpayable and its military unfundable. It doesn't decline gracefully. It falls. Fast. Brutally. And every empire that thought, it can't happen here, learned the same truth. It can. It does. Spain believed it was exceptional. Britain believed it was exceptional. The USSR believed it was exceptional. They were all wrong. And now, America is repeating the same story. We tell ourselves, we're different. We have technology. We have the dollar. We're America. But the pattern doesn't care. The pattern is mathematical. Spend beyond your means. Debase your currency. Hollow out production. Lose faith at home. Collapse follows. We've completed 5 stages. Stage 6 has already begun. And when Stage 7 hits, it won't announce itself slowly. It'll crash overnight. A currency crisis triggers a debt crisis, which triggers a political crisis. The superpower becomes a cautionary tale. The reserve currency becomes regional. The empire becomes memory. It's happened 3 times before. And the pattern says, we're next. Since 2020, we've accelerated every stage, printing faster, borrowing deeper, fracturing further. We're not walking toward collapse anymore. We're sprinting. Maybe we'll reform. Maybe we'll rebuild. Maybe this time is different. But the math says otherwise. And history, patient, merciless, undefeated, says we're about to learn the same lesson again. If this opened your eyes to where we are in the sequence, subscribe. Because when Stage 6 turns into Stage 7, you'll want to understand what just happened and why it was always inevitable. The answers aren't hiding in the future. They're written in the past. And the past is repeating.